Good morning. We begin our time together singing in this new day with Morning Has Come by Jason Shelton, a song inspired by the amazing sunrise at the Mountain Retreat and Learning Center in Highlands, North Carolina. Make sure your microphone is muted and sing along enthusiastically to welcome in this beautiful new day we've received. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett. My name is Jan Taddeo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. It is my great joy, tremendous joy, and great privilege to serve our faith as the minister of this congregation. I am so glad we can be together today on this day, this rather complicated holiday Sunday. So we'll talk more about Mother's Day today and a little bit about its complexity, but mostly we're going to explore stories because that's the theme for our May programs is story. If you have a chalice you want to light with us in a few minutes, please have it ready. We arrive from many places and many life experiences as we gather to recall our true selves, reflect on the meaning of our lives, and explore questions of ultimacy together. We are people who are new to Unitarian Universalism and people who are lifelong Unitarian Universalists. We are people of many religious beliefs and spiritual practices. We affirm and promote the responsible search for truth and meaning. We are people of many genders, sexualities, ethnicities, origins, ages, shapes, sizes, and expressions of our true selves. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. We are people of all ages and family structures, and we each bring gifts, talents, and passions that serve to affirm and promote communities with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We are a people of covenant who engage with one another in ways that promote and affirm justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We are people who care deeply for our planet and understand we are inextricably and profoundly connected with the web of all existence. We are people who welcome all who are seeking a community of faith that welcomes your whole self, all that you were, all that you are, all that you yearn to be. You are welcome here. And you are just where you should be, in a room full of compassionate, thoughtful Unitarian Universalists ready to meet you where you are. You are welcome here and you are home. And if you are a newcomer to our congregation, we hope that you will indeed find your spiritual home here with us. We are becoming a radically welcoming sanctuary in a green space. We foster spiritual growth as we joyfully nurture connections and community within our walls and beyond. If this is your first time here, I encourage you to join us several times to experience the full flavor of this congregation and this faith tradition. Come and be curious, courageous, and compassionate with us. And now I invite you to take a big, deep breath and let it out. And with the next deep breath, bring your whole self into this precious time we've set aside to be together today. As sound vibrates through us and around us, may we be reminded how deeply and profoundly, inextricably connected we are with one another, with all humans, with all animals, with all life on this planet, and with all the stars in the cosmos. We are one. We are one. Our call to worship this morning comes from Mary J. Harrington. We come together today in praise and thanksgiving for the gift of life itself. Someone gave birth to us. Some of us have given birth. All of us have been mothered in our time. All of us have mothered. Let our time today be one of recognition that we arrive from so many places: joy and delight, wistfulness and longing and worry, unmet needs and unfulfilled dreams, loss and sorrow, loss and emptiness, loss and regret. All life is made of. Mothers are made of too. Today we sing the songs of so many. Mothers who are single parents, foster parents, mothers who relinquish their young out of necessity, mothers who found their heart in adoption, mothers who left their children in 1,000 ways, mothers who rejoice, and mothers who mourn. We sing the songs of the grandmother, the auntie, the classroom teacher, the Sunday school teacher, the babysitter, the neighbor with endless cookies and time. There is a kind of love we cannot live without. It is never too late, no matter our age or situation. We sing a song of gratitude for all the moments of being known, being cherished, being found. And this Mother's Day chalice lighting comes to us from Dini Oliva. We light this chalice for mothers and mothering, to celebrate those who have taken on the task of nurturing a young one, baby, child, or youth into adulthood, to celebrate those who have nourished the light of truth and compassion in growing minds and hearts, to celebrate those who have committed time, money, energy to the growth of others in the world. We light this chalice to celebrate and hold dear this flame of love. It be so. And now return to our wonder box. I wonder what's in the wonder box. Several things in this wonder box. Here's a feather, and I'm going to place it right here, and you'll understand why later that we have a feather in here. This is a picture of my mother when she was about 17 or 18. This is a picture of my father's mother and father, and I don't know how old they are, but if you could see it up close, you'd see that they look very serious. Whoops, this way. There we go. They look very serious. We have a solution for that as part of this story today, that seriousness. And then there's some more pictures. What do we have here? We have Russ's mother and father and Russ's grandmother. And we have my mother's mother, my grandmother. And here we have my I think it's great-grandparents, Annie Elizabeth Darby and Charles William Moore, also looking rather serious. I think people in a particular time looked really serious when they took pictures. And this is Annie's mother, Adelia Walsh D'Arcy. She had lots of reasons to look serious. And I don't know if she's going to stay up. Stay up, Adelia. Okay, so there's some pictures. Oh, there's one more thing in here. This is my grandmother, this same stern grandmother over here. This is her 16 on the cover of our More and More Family Recipes book that I'll speak to a little bit later. But this morning I have a story to share, and all of this I wish I had all of your mother's pictures up here. Sometimes on Mother's Day I've done that, and maybe next year we can do that. Or the people who mothered you, if not your actual mother. And so the story today is Her Mother's Face by Roddy Doyle and illustrated by Freya Blackwood. There are two phrases in here that I had to look up. She talks about her mother's mad green shoes, because this is a story that takes place in Dublin, Ireland. Mad green shoes apparently is like just wild, like out of the box wild, so green shoes. And then the term conker, C-O-N-K-E-R, which is about, is the horse chestnut that grows on trees and is actually not good to eat, so don't eat it. And then let's start the story. Here we go. There once was this girl, and her name was Siobhan. She lived in a big house in Dublin with her father. It was a great house, full of interesting rooms and corners, full of old magazines and old machines and old toys and teddy bears. Siobhan spent hours and hours exploring the rooms and halls, and she always found something new. She loved that house. Siobhan's mother had died when she was only 3. She had no sisters and no brothers, no uncles, aunts, or cousins, and no grandparents. There was just Siobhan and her mother. He was a nice man, but he was very, very quiet and sad, and he kept himself to himself a lot. He read to Siobhan sometimes. He brought her home a new book every Friday. He smiled whenever he saw her looking at him, but he never spoke to her about her mother. In fact, nobody ever spoke to Siobhan about her mother. Siobhan was 10 now, and she could not remember her mother's face. She had searched every corner of the house. She found her mother's old books and a scarf and a pair of mad green shoes, but she never found a photograph. Siobhan could remember her mother's hands. Her hands combing Siobhan's hair, her hands peeling an apple, holding the steering wheel, pulling up Siobhan's socks, and her hands on her lap when Siobhan was brought into the dark room to say goodbye to her. When Siobhan closed her eyes, she could see her mother's hands doing these things and other things, but no matter how hard she tried, or how long she kept her eyes closed, she could not see her mother's face. She could remember her mother's voice, and she could remember some words. Cats and spuds for dinner, Siobhan? How does that sound? Yuck. Yuck cat or yuck spuds? Yuck cat. Okay, we'll have chicken instead. And she could remember her mother singing, Did you ever shove your granny off the bus? She could hear her mother, but she could never see her face. The empty space where her mother's face should have been was like a pain, a giant unhappiness that Siobhan carried with her everywhere. When she saw other mothers laughing and hugging their children or buttoning their coats, or even when she saw her friends' mothers yelling at her friends, the pain grew in her chest and she pushed up her tears to her eyes. And as she got older, the pain got worse and worse because her mother seemed to be going further and further away. Other children liked Siobhan. They liked sitting beside her in school. She never argued and she never whinged or grabbed and broke things. She made them laugh. She would cross her eyes and say the things that adults love saying. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's raining cats and dogs. I have eyes on the back of my head. Her friends all knew that Siobhan's mother was dead, but none of them knew how sad she was. She never told them, and she never let them see. When she tried to talk to her father about her mother, his face would fill with worry and sadness, and she'd stop. He hugged her once and said, Sorry. They had a pizza and watched telly together. It was nice, but they didn't talk. One day, Siobhan was sitting in St. Anne's Park, very near her house. She sat under a huge chestnut tree. She could remember her mother's hands holding her up high enough to pull a conker from the lowest branch. She could remember the voice. The big one, grab it. Yes! She could remember how it felt, the hands squeezing through her coat and dress, the nice, safe feeling knowing that she wouldn't fall. She tried to remember turning to smile at her mother, but she couldn't. This was what Siobhan was doing, trying to remember when she heard a voice. Hello. Siobhan looked and saw a beautiful woman standing beside her. The woman sat straight down on the grass. Most adults never did this because it was quite mucky and damp. You're sad, aren't you? Said the beautiful woman. She had dark brown hair like Siobhan's and brown eyes, and she had a friendly smile and a lovely voice. Siobhan never spoke to strangers, but this woman didn't seem like a stranger. Yes, said Siobhan, I am sad, a bit. Why, said the woman. And Siobhan told her everything about her mother's death and her hands and about how she could never see her face. And she cried as she spoke, but she didn't mind. She just kept talking. The woman listened and smiled. You know what you should do, she said when Siobhan had finished talking. What? Asked Siobhan. The woman wiped Siobhan's eyes with the sleeve of her jumper. You should look in the mirror, said the woman. Why? Said Siobhan. Because then you'll see your mother, said the woman. You'll see the way she looked when she was your age. And as you get older, you'll see what your mother looked like when she was getting older. Then she kissed Siobhan and hugged her. How's your daddy? She said. He's fine, said Siobhan, but he's very sad too. Give him a message from me, said the woman. Tell him. She whispered the message into Siobhan's ear. Siobhan laughed. Why? She said. Just tell him, and then he'll tell you, said the woman. And then she stood up. Goodbye, Siobhan, said the woman. We'll meet again, I'm sure. She walked away out of the park. Siobhan went home and went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. At first, all she could see was her own face, but she stayed there looking, and after a few minutes she began to imagine another girl, very like herself, but not exactly the same. The hair a little different, the mouth a little smaller, the lips a little darker, and she could make her look a little older and a little more, and Siobhan knew. She was able to imagine her mother's face. She closed her eyes. She could feel her mother's hands holding her up to grab the conker. She turned and she could see her mother's face. It wasn't clear, it wasn't exact, but it was there in her head. the big one, grab it. Yes! And Siobhan felt happy for the first time since her mother had died. But she forgot all about the beautiful woman's message to her father. Siobhan grew older, 14, 15. She looked in the mirror every morning and evening. Everybody noticed and thought that she was admiring her own beauty, but nobody minded because Siobhan was beautiful. 18, 19, 20, more years passed, and Siobhan now had a little girl of her own called Ellen, Siobhan's mother's name. One day, on the morning of her 30th birthday, Siobhan put on her mother's mad green shoes because it was a special day. Then she went with Ellen to visit her father in the big house. Her father brought Ellen for a walk in St. Anne's. While they were away, Siobhan went upstairs to the bathroom. She looked into the mirror and got a shock. She was looking straight at the beautiful woman she'd met all those years ago in the park. The beautiful woman had been her mother, and now on her birthday, Siobhan looked exactly like her. She cried. She heard the front door slamming, and little Ellen ran into the bathroom. She was holding a conker. She stopped when she saw Siobhan. "Why are you crying, Mommy?" she said. Siobhan picked her up. "Sometimes people cry when they're happy," said Siobhan. "Can I cry as well then?" said Ellen. "Yes, love," said Siobhan. And Siobhan and Ellen cried until they were soaking wet and laughing. Siobhan's father walked into the bathroom. He had heard them crying, and he looked worried. Suddenly, Siobhan remembered her mother's message, the words she had whispered into her ear all those years ago. "Put a feather in your knickers, Dad," she said. Ellen laughed. Her father's face went very pale. "Where did you hear that?" he said. "A beautiful woman told me to tell you," said Siobhan. "Your mother," said the father. "She said it to me whenever she thought I was being too serious." "Put a feather in your knickers, Granda," said Ellen, and he laughed. It was the first time Siobhan had heard him laugh. They went downstairs and made coffee, and Siobhan's father told them all about her mother, Ellen's grandmother. He told them how they'd met at a bus stop on Abbey Street. He told them about the first film they'd ever gone to see together, Revenge of the Killer Snails. She loved it, he hated it, and she shoved a piece of popcorn up his nose. He told them about their wedding day, how the cake fell off the table when they were trying to cut it. He told them everything. It was dark by the time he stopped talking. He was tired, and he was happy. Siobhan was also tired and happy, and little Ellen was asleep. And that's the end of the story. Siobhan didn't live happily ever after, but she lived a long, long life, and she was happy a lot of the time. Her father lived long enough to see Ellen grow into a woman. And what about Ellen? She's mad and funny and beautiful, and she cycles around Dublin with a big bag of feathers, looking for men who look too serious. So, to my ancestors, put a feather in your knickers. And now, let us sing together, "Where Do We Come From?" with words by Paul Gauguin, put to music by Brian Tate. I never wanted to look like my mother. By the time I was a teenager, I had fully convinced myself that I looked and acted nothing like my mother. I even looked for the adoption papers in the file cabinets in the basement. I didn't find any. And at some point, I came to realize that of the 6 of us kids, 3 looked like mom and 3 looked like dad. But that wasn't quite true either. For now, it is quite obvious that we each carry traits from generations of DNA. And I have not only accepted, but I'm proud that I definitely look and sometimes act very much like my mother. Since I started getting very involved in anti-racism and working on my whiteness a couple of decades ago, I've put more focus on learning more about where I come from. 3 years ago, I had my DNA tested through Ancestry.com, and there were no surprises. England, Germany, Ireland, New England, a wee bit of Scandinavia and France, a little Wales, a white Western European mutt. Many, many years ago, 45, 50, it's hard to tell, my grandfather, Charlie, this guy there, my dad's dad, conducted research to discover and document his father's lineage. His work was published in this family cookbook that I created in 1991. He went back a long way to the mid-1300s, some of which may not be exactly accurate. Cousins are debating this, but it's close enough, and it gets us, we know, to John Moore, the first to emigrate. He arrived in South Carolina in 1680 when he was about 21 years old as an employee of the king to serve as the secretary and receiver general for the Carolina Grant. He moved to Philadelphia in 1695 to take on the position of Commissioner of Customs at the king's command. I have not yet determined his level of involvement with the slave trade, but it is not unlikely that he had some part in that horrific history of this country. I don't know much about my matrilineal history, but in this lineage there is a great deal of information about my grandfather's mother's lineage. Her name was Annie D'Arcy, born in 1864 in LaPorte, Indiana. She died at the home of her youngest child, Delia, when she was 90 years old. Delia was named after Adelia D'Arcy Walsh. She was also known as Adelia D'Arcy Walsh and was known as Delia most of her life. Annie's daughter, Delia, was my grandfather's baby sister. She has a granddaughter named Delia, carrying the name through 5 generations. Like the family in our story, there's often a tendency to carry forward the names of our beloveds into future generations. I have long been fascinated with the story of Delia Walsh D'Arcy's life, and I'm pretty sure I've shared some of that with you in the past. She endured tremendous hardship from the time she immigrated to America from Ireland in 1845 at 5 years old until the day she died in 1928 in Roswell, New Mexico. She was a woman who persevered. Jumping forward 2 generations, in the past few years, I've been scanning and skimming through the letters of my great-aunt Sadie, the eldest child in my grandfather's family. And during the 1920s to the 1940s, she was a prolific letter writer, and most of her letters have been gathered and stored at my cousin's house in New Mexico. 3 years ago, I started bringing a couple of boxes at a time of these letters home to scan, taking them back to New Mexico and bringing back more. And then the pandemic stopped that cycle. There are over 13 boxes of letters, cards, and other memorabilia from Great Aunt Sadie's collection of letters she sent, letters she received, and other family archives. Most of her letters that I've scanned and read so far between Sadie, the eldest, most of the letters that I've scanned so far are between Sadie, the eldest, and her youngest sister, Delia. I was fascinated that the bookend sisters, of 7 children, the bookend sisters maintained such a long and regular correspondence. Reading through their letters makes me feel like a time traveler. It has given me a rare glimpse into the everyday lives of time and place and lifetimes distant relatives living in Arizona, New Mexico, and California during that era. Most of it is pretty mundane, swapping stories about their children, their marriages, their work, the dresses they sewed for their daughters, what they were growing in their gardens, some recipes, stories of everyday life, the stories that become our lives. Occasionally, there are these nuggets of history that crop up, The shift from the good times of the 1920s to the great hardships in the 1930s to the war in the 1940s. It has made me wonder how our stories from this era will be told in the future, or how they'll be found. I just don't see future generations sifting through millions of emails and texts to learn what our lives were like. It feels different to see someone's handwritten writing. There's someone's written hand from generations ago. It seems to bring up some essence of their life. Delia typed many of her letters, but each with careful edits made in ink. She clearly read them through after typing them to make sure they were correct. She often added some handwritten notes here and there or a postscript, and some of the letters are fully handwritten. Seeing her handwriting makes me wonder about her hands, about her choice of paper. What kind of pen did she write with? What kind of typewriter? Did her fingers get pinched between the keys like mine did when I used a manual typewriter? I try to visualize her setting, where she wrote. I see her at a small table in front of a window, looking out at the landscape, noticing the occasional bird or the breeze blowing through the branches of the scrub. Did she pause occasionally to take care of a child, tend to the meal, or chat with a neighbor who stopped by for a cup of sugar? When I see her handwritten script, I feel deeply connected with her and with the generations before. People who struggled, people who caused harm, possibly people connected with the slave trade, definitely some loyalists who fled to Canada during the Revolution. Sadie was the one who heard firsthand the stories of her grandmother Delia telling of her trials and tribulations. And she's the one who wrote them all down so that we know what Adelia Walsh D'Arcy's life was like. Did this inspire her to move through the challenges of the Depression, the hardships of rationing during the war, and the loss of all her siblings and all 5 of her children before she herself died? When life feels overwhelming, challenging, and it's hard to move forward, I can lean into these ancestors and feel their strength and perseverance holding me up, all that made it possible for me to be here now. I have to trust that the work I'm doing to preserve these stories will allow future generations of our family to be time travelers also, and that they too will be inspired by the grit, gumption, strength, and resilience that we've inherited. And to honor the matrilineal lineage, I offer a video called Time Traveler by spoken word artist Lila June. She offers a poetic reflection on time and the wisdom needed to care for future generations. This video was made to benefit the Winnemem-Wintu tribe. It's an indigenous tribe that is indigenous to Northern California and formally recognized by the California Native American Heritage Commission, an agency of the state of California. They once numbered approximately 14,000. By 1910, after several decades of conflict with white settlers, that number has plummeted to 400. Today, the tribe's population is approximately 150. In their language, Winnemem-Wintu translates to middle water people, as the McCloud River is bounded by the upper Sacramento to the west and the Pitt River to the east. We were born from water, we are of the water, and we fight to protect it.
Traveler, running faster, warrior is born, battle to be won, past, trauma, future, hurt. I'm a child of the dirt and I'm ready to give birth, planting a dream, panting I breathe, running towards the future with a handful of seeds, stronger than greed, I am stronger than hate, I stand under the shades of trees planted so long ago, a product of ancestral love. I'm here because my elders danced in the sun. They would give it all up for us, and from day one it was practiced like religion to prepare for the ones to come. We You forgot love, you forgot truth, you forgot how to live for a time beyond you. It's not about you, it's not about you. It's about the song that is traveling through. It travels through time, singers will die, but the song lives on through matrilineal lines.
We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn. We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn.
Open your eyes, open your heart, draining aquifers before they can recharge. We're not in charge, nature's in charge. Look to the stars, remember who you are. Stay humble or fall, we don't know it all. And we are not exempt from natural law. Live selfishly and the structure will fall. But if we live for those unborn, then the song will go on. So before you take a book off the shelf, take a look inside yourself. Answers come to you at light speed. I'm searching for knowledge that I can't find on a news feed. Knowledge found through intuition. Knowledge found through fasting and dancing. This ain't superstition, it's ancestral tradition. So throw me the spear of wisdom, sharpened and sunlit. I'm giving my life to the oneness. I'm a warrior, I'm sun-kissed. I'm armed, but I'm harmless. Protecting cycles of rain and cycles of snow. Fighting for children whose names I will never know. I look up and read the messages written all across the sky. Messages telling us that it's time to evolve or die. It's time to live this life right, so that when our children look back, they look back with pride.
Knowing where my family came from and why they came to America has become very important to me. All four of my grandparents came over on the boats to Ellis Island in the early 1900s. Three of them passed away before I was born, and my last grandparent died when I was very young. So now that my primary sources have left this earth as I know it, I find myself yearning for those stories and memories that many of my peers grew up with. I am Lydia Miriam III. My maternal grandmother, you can see that or not. My maternal grandmother was Lydia Miriam Besice Johnson. My mother was Lydia Miriam Johnson Candell, and I am Lydia Miriam Candell Patrick. I was the youngest of four children, born just 17 months after my brother David was born. I was not planned nor expected, and that knowledge in itself has become quite the puzzle piece. As with most families and getting older myself, I don't want to lose the history, the stories, the meaning behind my place in this world. And so I have tried to get all of the puzzle pieces together that I can and put them in some way that makes sense to me. My grandmother was born in Riga, Latvia, to an already large family. She was given at the age of 5 to a Russian family as a playmate for their 3-year-old. She would live and work for that family until she was 19 and was given a ticket to America on a ship headed for Ellis Island in 1910. My grandfather, Walter Johnson, also immigrated to America and arrived in Ellis Island around 1912. And those two young people left all that they knew, their whole families, to come to a new country alone and start over. My paternal grandparents did the same 2 years. I remember finding my grandfather's Latvian journal, which he kept documenting his trip to America between 1910 and 1912. It took me a few years to find someone to translate the journal, as it was written in the old Latvian tongue. And even after finding a Latvian translator in Latvia, she could not even decipher all of the old words. Another hurdle overcoming was the disappearing marks from writing on paper that was now over 108 years old. And at the time, I thought that translating that journal would provide for me all the insights I needed into understanding my family history. What I discovered was a log about a young man on a boat to America. He ate some fish, he got sick on the boat, and he made some new friends with both the Germans and the Jews. I remember finding the letters my dad had written to my mom while he was overseas during World War II. She kept every single one of them. I've got them organized by date and detail and found photos to match what I could of the details from those letters about all the struggles that young families went through both here and overseas with the American troops at that time. I thought these letters would give me the reasons behind all of those decisions my parents made while I was growing up that I find so baffling now that I have my own grown children. What I discovered was the chatter between a young couple in love, separated by war and food rationing. I met a cousin years back who had all of the scoop on my paternal side of the family, the Cangellosis from Palermo, Italy. He had gone back to Italy many times, had met the old family, visited the ancestral homes, the churches, seasides. Here I was hoping for insight into my Italian roots, and maybe why my dad changed the family name from Cangellosi to Candel after the birth of their first child. What I got from my cousin was some great stories about his adventures traveling not just to Italy, but all around the world, and an open invitation to go with him on his next trip to South Africa to swim with the sharks. I declined. I am sure I am not the only one for whom family history carries the idea of getting all the puzzle pieces back in place. I can't be the only parent or child searching for all of the wisdom and knowledge and courage from their ancestors, right? A recent search on Google on why family history is so important gave me this little bit from selecthealth.org. They have listed 5 reasons why family history is important. Number 1, it gives you a sense of identity. Nothing is more eye-opening than learning about who you are, learning about your ancestors, celebrating family traditions, embracing your culture, and understanding where you came from can open your eyes to show you how beautiful and unique you are. Number 2, it makes you more resilient. Back in the day, life was hard. More likely than not, your past family members probably faced tragedies and terrible heartache. They faced things that seemed impossible to overcome, but they did. And learning about their stories and how they got through difficult times can definitely give you the courage you need to keep going and make you more resilient. Number 3, it helps you connect with others. Learning about your family history can have amazing effects on the way you connect with others, especially because it allows you to connect with people in the past, the present, and the future. Number 4, makes you a better human. Your ancestors' stories can shape you into a more grateful, happy, empathetic, and compassionate version of yourself. You may discover that your great-grandfather lived during the Great Depression and that he had to work hard, which may inspire you to work hard as well. And number 5, it helps you make good health choices. Learning about your ancestors can give you a lot of information about what health concerns run in your family, and more importantly, what you are at risk for. And knowing that can help you make better choices for your own healthy lifestyle. So I'll keep digging and compiling and journaling my finds. So I haven't gotten all the answers I thought I was going to get. My digging is not for naught. I have some stories, several images, a few conversations, and the letters, and my own memories to gather all around me whenever I need to find myself. When I think about it, I am strong like my grandmother Lydia B. Seiss, and love to travel. And I'm a baker, like my grandfather Walter Johnson, and willing to give away food to those in need. I am hardworking, like my grandfather Francesco Cangialosi, and I will do anything for my family. I believe in the power of love, like my grandmother Cecilia, and I'm willing to be open to wherever it takes me. And I am resilient like my mother, Lydia, and have a deep sense of faith. And I am kind like my dad, Matteo, and I am willing to open to change. The rest, I still have yet to learn, but there's hope.
I get up every morning early enough to make sure that I have meditation time. What I do during meditation time has evolved over the years, but it always includes some silent breathing, being and moving, some stillness for listening, and some journaling and short reflective reading. I'm fortunate enough to have space for all of this. And in that space, for the last few years, I've had an altar to my ancestors. It's a simple table covered with colored cloths, a candle, a piece of artwork that reminds me that my ancestors root me in the beginning of all things on this planet and beyond, and a bowl for burning some incense and a bell. And I will confess to you, many mornings I stand before that altar and I wonder, who are you all to me? Most immediately, my ancestors are my 4 grandparents. I knew all of them for many years, and they have all now passed from this earthly life. I was in their homes enough to hear stories of their parents and to ask questions about objects that had meaning and history for them. And I now have some of those objects in our house. I was curious and bold enough to even rummage through some of their drawers and cabinets and chests without permission, which revealed some elements of their past they might not have wished for me to know. I know that the 4 of them lived through some pretty difficult things. One was the child of immigrants. 3 of the 4 lost one of their parents in childhood. 2 of them had alcoholic fathers. 2 of them watched one of their parents die slow, painful deaths that likely could have been prevented today. One grew up in what we would now call a blended family of step and half siblings with parents who belonged to the Ku Klux Klan. One grandfather dropped out of school in the 7th grade to become the man of the house and to run the farm that sustained his mother and 2 sisters. The other grandfather, after getting himself out of juvenile trouble, worked his way through school and earned an engineering degree. One grandmother as a child was sold to another family as a house girl and was rescued by an older brother who drove across the country and kidnapped her in the night. They all lived through things that I simply have not had to imagine. And yet they became people who brought my parents into the world and who became the extended network of people who loved and supported me. I've come to see some common threads in their lives. One became a constant bridge between opposite and sometimes opposing ends of the family. And she stood with Black friends at a time when doing so challenged all of her extended family's racist roots. Another did not experience nor allow himself much joy in life, but he did spend his life making sure that those around him experienced joy for themselves. One of them, who suffered so much as a child with trauma beyond belief, insisted through her life that she would never speak ill of anyone, patching holes, as I've come to think of it, with a view of something better than a person's worst acts. The one who spent his youth in trouble spent a good bit of time, effort, and money rescuing more than one wayward young person and seeing them through to a better life. It's also clear to me that all of these traits can easily become vehicles of dysfunctional families. Not all breaks can be bridged. Not all holes need to be patched with pleasantries. Not everyone can be saved. And even though you aid the joy of others, every human being deserves to experience joy for themselves. So I don't view my immediate ancestors as perfect, but they do amaze me. They came through real tragedy, at times to not only survive, but to be resilient, to be those who live and support life. My life, those of my siblings and cousins, my parents, my aunts, and my uncles. Their lives made positive differences in our lives. I personally believe that we continue in some way after our bodies die. I would never argue with anyone about that because I could, of course, be wrong. But I have this sense that this is the truth about us. I was a Universalist in belief long before I became a Unitarian Universalist. And that meant that not only do I think we continue somehow after our bodies die, but that we continue in what we now call the interdependent web of all existence. Short version, there is no hell. So as I stand looking on my altar to my ancestors, wondering, who are you all to me? One thing always comes up. These four ancestors' love and support for me now is larger and deeper because of the sacred realms they now inhabit, which somehow mysteriously interconnect with this realm that we inhabit. Recently, I stood looking at my altar to my ancestors, and I found an image forming inside of me. It was a giant cosmic waterfall made up of spirit, descending from far, far out in the cosmos, descending and approaching me. Ultimately, this waterfall of spirit entered me. I am a part of it, as you are. We are current expressions of that web of interdependence that has moved through the ages to make us. The feeling that arose as I witnessed this was simple gratitude and deep joy. This is who they all are to me. So many beyond number, beyond the four that I can remember. Eternal spirits who took physical form over thousands and millions of years, resulting in me and in you. We have brought with us into this life some of their insight and very likely some of their unfinished business, unhealed wounds, and unmet needs. But then that's our work now. And the business we finish, the wounds we heal, the needs we meet, and the wisdom we glean from our living all become a part of what we leave when we ourselves become part of the ancestors.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Lydia. Mother's Day was originally offered by Julia Ward Howe as a day for mothers to come out of their homes and march in the streets for peace, to prevent their sons from going to war. I offer this prayer for Mother's Day, offered by Johnstone. On this day of honoring mothers, we must acknowledge the complexity of the relations in our lives, especially family relations, those most powerful influences. In witness of that power and whatever feelings are awakened in us, let us bring our hearts and minds into focus on the holy and the good. Let us be together in the spirit of prayer and intention. Gracious God, may the Spirit of love bless all our families, each of us. Thank you for the mothers who have nurtured our lives and our souls. Thank you for all those who have helped us grow into who we are, whatever their role, grandmother or stepmother, foster parent or father, uncle or teacher. We recognize and treasure the nurturers in our own lives, past and present, whoever they may be. Comfort those whose parent or child has died. Loss may feel acute again today as others celebrate. May grief be muted by the memory of love and the companionship of others. May those with difficult relationships with their mothers or with other parents or with their find ways to appreciate what has been good and to grow from what has not. May goodness be born from any struggles that exist. We commit ourselves anew to the continuity of the generations, whether we raise children or have raised them ourselves, or whether we seek other ways to shape the future. May we honor our struggle to offer to all those coming after us the love, the justice, the wisdom, and the guidance that we may be able to give. May the blessings we have been given by previous generations be transmitted again to new generations. Amen. And now let us sing together, Sleep, My Child, a Welsh melody with words adapted by Alicia S. Carpenter. Our congregation is committed to creating a more compassionate world, and to this end, each quarter we split our plate collection with an organization nominated by people in the congregation and selected by our Giveaway the Plate committee. Our second quarter plate recipient is Path Project, a Gwinnett-based organization. Here is an excerpt from their website about the work they do in our community. There are multiple challenges facing children growing up in mobile home parks, but the most pressing challenge is the high school dropout rate. We can end this with strong, positive relationships and education. This is why we do what we do. At the Path Project Community Centers, they offer programs that are designed using research-based best practices and are led by certified teachers and youth development specialists who serve alongside incredible volunteers. Through partnerships with park owners, schools, businesses, churches, parents, and other nonprofits, they're able to offer on-site programs. Our plate contributions also support the mission and vision of this congregation, so I ask that you please give generously to support the work of this very important ministry in our wider community, as well as the shared ministry of our congregation. As we listen to a recording of our pianist Brian Bishop playing Dance of the Slovaks by Unitarian composer Bela Bartok, you will see on the screen ways to contribute to our offering via PayPal, Venmo, or by mailing a check payable to UUCG to the address shown. If you are worshiping with us for the first time, your presence here today with us is a great gift to this congregation, and you may choose to let the plate pass. The offering will now be most gratefully received. May the generous gifts received this week move us towards realizing our vision of a more compassionate and connected world. We pause for a moment to offer gratitude, first to Diane Smithson for collecting and delivering 277 pounds of food and supplies for the Lawrenceville Cooperative Ministries last Sunday. Thank you to all who contributed to make that possible. I also want to lift up the good work of our communications team that is working on our branding and messaging for outreach via social media and advertising sources to increase our exposure in the community and invite more people into this life-saving faith. Michelle Reed, Kelsey Glenn, Mary Jane Stout, Lorena Griffin, Peggy Avert, and Christiana McQueen. Thank you for your important work for this congregation. Thank you, Bob Patrick and Lydia Patrick, for your beautiful and thoughtful reflections. And thank you, Gabby Maduro Salvary, for managing the Zoom room today, and to Russ Taddeo for running video and sound. And I want to thank again Rob Cole, Deb Millett, and Sue Ann Soloway for serving on our reconvening task force. They have created a report that they will be sharing with the board in our meeting this Wednesday. Now is the time for our call to connection. To stay strong and vital as a community, we need to seek ways to connect between Sundays. If you are new to our congregation, please text welcoming to the number on the screen, and you'll receive a few texts and emails that will help to guide you in connecting with people in the congregation and with our programs and events. You can also sign up for our weekly e-news and our newsletter by sending an email to info@uucg.org and request to be added to our mailing list. If you are interested, if you missed some services, they are up, they're loaded up on our YouTube channel, so look for them there. We are going to be reconvening. I think by the end of the summer for sure, we will be reconvening. So there's a lot of work to do. Last April, a year ago April, we ambitiously said, oh, let's get the place ready for us to start last summer, but that didn't happen. So all this list of projects has just been kind of, a few things have gotten done. I'm not going to read all those. You probably don't have time to read all those, but just know there's a lot of things that you could do to help us look our best when we come back together, to help our indoor and outdoor property feel most welcoming. So please consider how you can support getting our place ready for all of us and all our new folks who haven't seen us yet, seen our space yet. Next Saturday is your first opportunity. That should say June 4th. Next Saturday is a property work day. You can come and work inside or out on the 5th and on the 4th, and start early. We do this in the morning usually. I think it's from 8 to about noon or so. And on the Sunday following, which is, I think, not the 6th. I don't know, maybe my dates are messed up. But anyway, you get it. The first weekend in June. Property work day on Saturday, food collection on Sunday. Please bring those things that are needed. You can check that for updates. Our need for platelets for our friend Terry are still necessary, so please continue to donate platelets if you are able. And some ways to engage your search for truth and meaning this week and going forward: the faith development resources that our coordinator for family ministries, Christiana McQueen, collates are just fabulous. So please take a look at that. There's something for every age and for families and for everyone. So if you have elementary age children, please register them for our religious exploration program if you haven't done so already, so that you can get access to our weekly programs. Today, we are not having the 12:30 religious exploration program. This is the week that we have Ari at home, and we have Spiral Scouts today. But it's a wonderful program that uses short films from Pixar, and it's really fun, and they've been enjoying it. So please bring your kids. Adult and teen religious exploration, faith development, happens on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Please join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. for our program that is related to our monthly theme. This month's theme is story. And this week, Belief Exploration is meeting today at 12:30. The Gwinnett Understanding Secular Truths meets tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And we have a board meeting on Wednesday at 7 that is always open for people to come and observe the meeting and observe the board's conversation. We ask that visitors just observe. Thank you. And on May 16th, next Sunday, we have our congregational meeting to elect new officers, and I expect there will also be time then to talk about the reconvening process. Our new member signing will also take place on May 16th. So if you have attended UU 102 or attended our new Starting Point program and you feel ready to make the commitment to being a member of the congregation, please contact me as soon as possible and let me know so I can make sure you're included next Sunday. There are several opportunities to connect on a regular basis. In addition to Gust and Belief Exploration, we have our Covenant Choir, Yarns from the Heart, Courageous Coffee House, Women's Spirituality, Exploring Tarot with Sherry. So please look for those opportunities to connect with others and to deepen your search for truth and meaning. And our pastoral care team is available 24/7 if you need confidential spiritual or emotional support or just want to talk to someone. And now I invite you to please rise in spirit as we say together the words we say as we extinguish our chalice, followed by our closing song, I Know I Can, with words by Dennis Hamilton and music by Jeannie Gagne. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words are from Derek Walcott. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. Our service has ended, and now our service to one another and our wider communities begins. Please be well, beloveds. Please let me know if and when you get vaccinated, as this is a key factor in our ability to gather in person again. And we are, I think, at about 74% of our active members and friends are vaccinated. And I'm going to be sending out some messages this week to people that I can't remember if you're vaccinated or not. And maybe we'll get up to that 80%, which is the threshold we're looking for. And if you find yourself becoming too serious, remember, where'd it go? Here, use this one. Stick a feather in your knickers. And now we'll stay online for a time of connection. We won't break into breakout groups. We'll just muddle about in the big room together. So I look forward to seeing you in a few minutes in the big room. Thank you for being here today. Love you all. Be well. See you next Sunday.